I have a problem. I have a video game problem. I play video games a little too much, I guess. It's the one thing that my ADHD latched onto. And to be quite honest, I'm glad that I kind of latched onto that instead of, I don't know, like meth. But it's the one thing I do that I do tend to get a little too hyper focused on. And I do tend to feel a little bit guilty about it since, everybody and their mother have been telling me to grow out of it and stop playing them since as long as I can remember. Taking a step back though, I've come to realize, discover, if you will, some lessons that video games have taught me. So if, like me, you feel like time spent gaming has been wasted, walk with me. So let's start with the basics. And the first thing is exactly that. It's the basics. Learn the basics. When the pandemic hit, me and some of my best friends around the world decided to spend our lockdown Saturday nights playing FIFA. For those of you just joining us, FIFA is a football simulator video game. And it got super competitive to the point where we were not only playing for fun anymore, but we were actively trying to get better. We were trying to bury each other's teams. And after years of trial and error and trying to learn the tactics and the strategies to get better at the game, the only thing that actually sustainably worked was to learn the basics. Just learning the basics of the game, pretty much like in real football. Finding spaces, how to break down a defense, how to pass the ball, all of those things. And that's the lesson here. It doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to do. It doesn't matter what it is you're trying to learn. As long as you learn the essence, the basics of it, you're going to have the strongest possible foundations to build upon to get better. Learn the rules, learn the basics, don't try to skip over them. The most common skills in whatever it is that you're trying to do are often overlooked because they look and they sound easy. Music theory when you're trying to become a songwriter, color theory when you're trying to become an artist, and so on and so forth. Second, know your strengths. Now this is something that shooter games like Team Fortress and Call of Duty taught me. See, I would have loved to play as a sniper. I wanted to be this deadly ghost-like assassin, one-shotting people from across the map with an overpowered weapon. And I tried, I gave it my best shot. But I never quite got the hang of it. I discovered that I wasn't really good at sniping. Years later, though, I discovered that since I'm very impulsive and I have little patience, things that snipers hiding in one spot for too long are not known for, I am actually very good at running and gunning, but not at sniping, and that kind of reflected certain aspects of me, where there are things that I really want to do, but I'm not really good at them. So I obsess about doing that one thing that is clearly not meant for me, so it turns into a blocker. And there's really only two ways to get past this, and that is you either play to your strengths and do something else, or if you really, really, really want to do this thing, you put in the time, you learn the basics, and you learn how to get better at that one thing. Number 3, patience. Holy crap, has gaming taught me patience. If you're a speedrunner, you're probably not going to relate to this, but for the rest of us, playing a game and figuring out puzzles and mechanics takes some time. I honestly wish I could name drop a Soulsborne game in here, because God, do you need patience for one of those. But it turns out I don't have a lot of that, so I'm just going to have to fall back into FIFA once again. Bear with me. I believe there was a study recently that claimed that FIFA was the most stressful game to play. Part of it is, I assume, because of the extremely competitive nature of the game, and another part because of, how toxic that community actually is. See, when you score a goal, a little animation plays where your players celebrate that goal. Now, this animation is skippable by the goal scorer almost immediately, but their opponent is forced to watch it for a few seconds before they're able to skip it. Unless you watch competitive sports or play competitive sports, I cannot possibly convey how much those few seconds make your blood boil. This, naturally, was not great for my emotional dysregulation, and that's just something that I've always had to deal with because of the ADHD. But watching that little animation was like poking it with a stick. So I decided to hack my own behavior and stop skipping the animation entirely. Sometime later, the irritating effect has turned into a very mild reflex of, oh no, not another goal, but it no longer makes me want to break something. It taught me how to manage emotions, how to be patient, how to turn these events into a learning opportunity to help me figure out what it is that I did wrong, what can I do better. And this is all training for life if you want to treat it like that. By overexposing myself to these stressful situations, I've managed to train it down to something that no longer affects me. It's training. It's trained my emotional regulation. 4. Compounded learning. The one thing that team sports could not teach me, I learned from video games. Skill-based multiplayer games just like Fortnite or Overwatch back when it was good, all of these have simple mechanics that are hard to master. So by learning the basics first and then adding a new move or mastering a new weapon or learning a new map, it all ends up in a very effective compounded learning exercise. You learn one move or 1% of a game one week and then get that to a science, and then the next week you add another move or a different skill on top of that. And then you just keep building on it. And again, sports in general would have taught me this when I was a kid, but I learned at my own speed, and by that I mean kind of slow. So playing with kids that were already like really good at sports was very stressful for a socially anxious 9-year-old. Video games and even the anonymity of online gaming have given me the freedom and the space to learn, analyze, and understand at my own pace. Finally, 5. How to deal with FOMO. There are a lot of games out there that are very well received, have tons of awards, and a healthy player base. Games like Elden Ring or the Jedi Fallen Order games or cozy games like Animal Crossing and Dreamlight Valley. They're very good games with tons of people that played them, and I just couldn't get into them. And every so often I do get that feeling that I should be able to enjoy them, to be part of a community that shares love for these games. And I tried and I played and they just don't do it for me. And what I learned here is that, and again, people with a neurotypical disposition would have learned these things a long time ago, but it takes me a little longer. What I learned is that not everything has to be for me. It's okay to miss things if those things are not for you, or don't tickle your brain cells, or even if your skill set is not attuned to certain things. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I can't enjoy those Soulsborne games, mostly because I suck at them. But that's a good thing to understand. Not everything is made for me or aimed at me, and I can skip it to play what I really like. And in real life, well, not all jobs are made for me. Not all friend groups are made for me. Not all jokes are gonna land, and that is okay. It's all part of this journey of self-acceptance. Like playing Soulsborne games, sometimes you just have to admit that you suck at it and move on. Let me do a quick recap here. Things video games have taught me, and the sort of stuff you should keep an eye out for if you're out there playing video games and trying to learn how to do something. Number 1. Start with the basics. Get those down before you move on to more complicated moves. Number 2. Understand what you're good at and leverage that into a job or a hobby you can do. Not everyone can be a sniper. Number 3. Use competitive video games to develop a sense of emotional regulation and patience. Number 4. Use video games to understand the concept of compound learning so you can apply it elsewhere in life. And number 5. Train yourself out of FOMO by understanding that you don't have to play or enjoy every single game out there. Now, are there ways to learn these things without video games? Of course, many such cases. But my brain lights up with video games. So if I'm going to spend hours on them, I might as well learn something. What are you playing these days? What have you learned from video games? Let me know in the comments. And thanks again for tuning in.